Good evening, everyone. On behalf of BIT Mishra Fraternity, I would like to extend a warm and hearty welcome to our expert talk session organized by Circular Economy Study Group, BIT off campus Lalpur Ranchi. It is a great pleasure to have amidst us our special guest, Dr. Sachin Mangla. Sir will be talking on the topic Circular Food Supply Chains, a practical approach. A special welcome to our director, Dr. Vandana Bhattacharjee ma'am, who has been kind enough to support our endeavor. A very warm welcome to our esteemed faculty members, other guests, and attendees present here. Sir is working as a faculty of knowledge management and business decision making, University of Plymouth, United Kingdom, and is also associated in teaching with various universities in UK, Turkey, India, China, France, etc. His research is in the field of green and sustainable supply chain and operations, Industry 4.0, circular economy, decision making and modeling. He has published several papers in reputed international journals: International Journal of Production Economics, International Journal of Production Research, Production Planning and Control, Business Strategy and the Environment, Journal of Cleaner Production, Annals of Operations Research, etc. Currently, he is also involved in several research projects on various issues and applications of circular economy and sustainability. Among them, he is responsible for knowledge based modeling, enhancing and implementing knowledge based ICT solutions within high risk and uncertain conditions for agriculture production system, European Commission Rice Scheme. Recently, he has also received a grant as a PI from British Council, Newton Fund Research Environment Links, Turkey/UK. Circular and Industry 4.0 driven sustainable solutions for reducing food waste in supply chains in Turkey. He is also working with Uttarakhand Science Education and Research Center, Government of Uttarakhand Ranchi, Government of Uttarakhand, India, for managing food waste in circular economy. Sir, your presence with us is an refulgence and a source of inspiration for the students present here. Now I request Sir to take forward the session.
Thanks, Samrin. Thank you very much for this lovely introduction. And I would like to thank Dr. Ashutosh Mishra, who invited me for this talk and giving me this opportunity to have an interaction with you all. And I'm pretty happy that I can see probably 30 participants, 30 students have joined, and you would be guys from BBA, MBA, MCA, BCA, and from some other disciplines as well. And there could be some senior faculty members, and there could be some other members as well. Anish, are you also there? One of my student, Anish?
Yes, sir, I'm present, sir.
Okay. So one of my student is also here from IIT Roorkee, Indian Institute of Technology, IIT. And he is currently one of my PhD student there. He's working in this food. So I asked him to be present there, and hopefully it would be a good session that I will also invite him to speak something on our current work, what we are doing and what he's doing on his research, probably for 10 minutes in between. So please, so let me start the proceedings, because I don't want to, let's say, waste even a single second. So could you please check the screen is visible?
Yes.
Okay. So nice. So, so dear students and dear participants, when Professor Professor Ashutosh Mishra invited me for this talk, so I was firstly thinking, what should I do? Probably in terms of okay, because being an academician, so probably you would like to speak a lot. You would like to speak a lot in terms of giving this basic concept to your participants, to your attendees. And at the same time, it is also important that you can discuss some of your research, because we are probably involved in research driven teaching. Okay, so I try my best to keep it generic and to keep it as simple as possible for you guys, so that you can understand the concept of the circularity, sustainability, or supply chain operations management in business domain. As I was listening Samarin, so she was saying that you guys have also conducted a couple of other seminars probably on this circular economy concept. So I was expecting that there could be a little bit understanding of circularity among audience. But still, I would like to do my best to start it from scratch, because I have developed this presentation along with my student Anish from scratch, because I believe that you know nothing, you are on zero. Okay, so in this particular, let's say 1 hour, what we are going to do, we are going to discuss all about on these couple of important concepts, as I mentioned, like circularity, sustainability, business management, supply chain, operations management. Okay. And generally, we will be talking about food. In this particular PowerPoint, there would be some more examples from manufacturing as well, because when we are studying, sorry, we are studying, let's say manufacturing and services, you might have seen the difference between manufacturing versus services. Okay, so where we are talking about that in manufacturing, you are talking about physical goods, tangible items, but in services you are not talking about physical goods, you are talking about intangible items. Okay, so here we are having some examples on manufacturing supply chains, okay, goods. And at the same time, we will be talking about food organization, food supply chain. Okay, and then we are going to talk about how we can implement all these concepts, the hot cakes, particularly in food and particularly in supply chain and operations management context. Okay, so as Samarin has mentioned, so she was mentioning in my introduction, so I would like to say I'm a very simple person who believes in doing best works from my side. So I have been involved in a couple of research projects on food, as she mentioned about one of the project about UK and Turkey. The other project is going on with Indian government, and recently we have also been awarded a few more projects from ICSSR, Indian Council of Social Sciences Research, and all those grants are again related to this food, agri-food supply chains, and all those food wastage and all those kinds of scenarios, circularity and digitalization in food supply chains. Now let me start from beginning. What is supply chain management? Okay, I am supposing that you guys, first of all, you don't know about supply chain management. Yeah, supply chain management, you can have probably a couple of technical definitions about supply chain management. You must have studied some books as well on supply chain management. Very famous book is that is something being given by Chopra and Mandel, etc. Okay, so there you guys, you can study the definition of the supply chain or value chain. Okay, you might have seen about these functions, logistics, purchasing, manufacturing, and all those things. But for me, supply chain is something that, in a layman language, when you are going to match your demand with supply, what we have seen what sorry, just 1 second. What we have seen in this COVID-19 in last 2 years, why most of the companies they have suffered, because there was a disruption in their supply chain, there was a disruption in the demand and at the supply end. So there was a mismatch between demand and supply. So as a supply chain manager, as an operations manager, I would request you all to keep a track on your demand and your supply. If you are able to manage, if you are able to match your demand and supply, probably you are a good supply chain manager. Okay, more technical definitions you might have seen in your supply chain management, you have probably different actors such as suppliers, okay, manufacturer, then you could have maybe third party logistics as well, you could have maybe distributors, retailers, and finally you could have customer and ultimate customers. Okay, so there could be different actors in your supply chain. Okay, which you which you would say supply chain members or actors, okay, or stakeholders. So the important thing for you guys in supply chain is that you have to basically produce in right quantities, okay? And you have to distribute, you have to supply, you have to go for that logistics and distribution functions at the right quantity, right locations, and at the right time. Because you don't want to waste your resources. If you are wasting your resources, it means you are going to lose money, you are going to let's say, probably lowering down your profits and your competitive advantage in the market. Okay, so I would not like to go in much detail about that. Now, why we should go for circular? Why do we need circularity? Why we should go for sustainability? And what is the meaning of probably sustainable, etc., etc. Okay, so we have problems. We have seen a huge problem of this pollution, carbon emission, deforestation, industrialization, resource exploitation, and global population. You can imagine, like India, we are the second high, highest, you could say, populated country after China. But if you are talking about global population, so it is going to be increasing day by day. Okay, and by 2050, you can have some number, some figure could be there. So the important thing is how the life is possible. We have this pollution problem, air pollution, water pollution, noise pollution, okay, and maybe soil pollution, emissions. You can talk about those emissions, air quality index. You can talk about those greenhouse gas emissions. So these are the very generic problems and very common problems, and everybody knows about the uh, consequences of these issues. So that's why I think we do need some, let's say, some, you could say, precautions. We do need some business models to survive, probably in this volatile and in this competitive and probably in this, let's say, global challenging environment. Okay. If I would like to talk in more detail, probably, so as I'm saying, the resources are finite. So at one day, probably all the resources would deplenish, and we would be shifting from renewable sources of energy to probably non-renewable sources of energy. Okay, in India, you can see the solar energy initiative. Government of India, they are highly positive about that initiative. Okay, and most of the time we are talking about linear economy. So, my dear friends, now as we have seen a couple of serious problems, so we cannot focus only on the linear economy, or we can't survive with this linear economy because of the consequences or the seriousness of the issues. Okay, so we do need this circular economy. Okay, again, as I talked about, population is increasing. Okay, and if you can see this figure, so by 2050, probably 27. So the number of Earths required. So probably we do need probably 27 number of Earths. But unfortunately, we have only one Earth. Okay. So the thing is, we have to consume our resources wisely, and we have to preserve our resources maybe for our future generations. You might have heard about sustainable development. Okay. So the thing is, we do need something, we do need some solutions. And what are those solutions? Probably circularity and sustainability are those solutions. Global resource use, I think if you're talking about construction minerals, if you're talking about ores and industries minerals, fossil energy carriers, biomass. So the important thing, what I want to say here, probably with this introductory slides, that we are consuming a lot. Okay, we are consuming our natural resources a lot. We are consuming our minerals a lot. Okay, and we are highly dependent on our natural resources. But this is not a solution, because the probably the resources, let's say the natural resources, those are going to be depleted very soon. And then what is going to happen after that? So this is the seriousness of the problem. Okay, that is why probably academic community, they should integrate, they should collaborate with industry people, they should collaborate maybe with policy people, and then we all should try to create a sustainable future. Okay, or sustainable earth. Lots of initiatives are going on towards that. You might have seen some conferences, those are going on. You might have seen recently there was COP26 that was conducted in probably in Italy or somewhere in Europe. Okay, COP26. Apart from that, there are so many events, those are going on all around the world, just to educate stakeholders the importance of this, you could say, sustainability and circularity. Because we need to left something for our future generations. Okay. Now, what are the results of linear economy? If I talk about again, maybe some of the figures, if I would like to give you. So, like we are generating probably 11 billion tons of waste globally, out of which only 25% is recovered. Okay, so see, there is a scope. Only 25% is recovered. I'm not talking about food. I'm talking about waste in general. Okay, so 25% is recovered. 250 kilometer cubic of groundwater is depleted every year. You can see the seriousness of this groundwater, probably in India as well. In metropolitan cities like Bombay and some of other cities as well, probably this issue is very serious. If I'm talking about biodiversity, so again there is some issues. If I'm talking about carbon emission, again there is an issue. Okay, because we are emitting a lot. Okay, again we are saying we have limited reservoirs. That's fine. The waste generated in the linear economy is rising. That's quite understood. So we are wasting a lot, my dear friends, either at industry or maybe at our homes. Okay, as a stakeholder, as a consumer, everybody is wasting a lot. So we need to probably think something that how we can recover probably the value from this waste. Okay, probably you have to think in a different way, that you have to think in that way that how you are going to treat this waste as a resource instead of treating this waste as a waste. So I am probably uh, okay, let me talk about once in this slide what is the role of supply chains in that. So when I'm talking about supply chains, when I'm talking about this linear economy, so how we can integrate that. So see, there is a huge impact of the supply chain on this particular waste, you could say, or maybe the CO2, or maybe the carbon generation, and maybe the whole amount of these emissions that we are talking about. Okay, because material transactions are happening through supply chains. There are different supply chain activities, maybe in terms of logistics and distributions, where you are talking about those carbon emissions, and also there are different processing activities during production. So there you are talking about carbon emissions. Okay, so supply chain is having a huge impact on environment. They are having a huge impact probably on society. They are having a huge impact probably on emissions. Okay. And minerals and food are the most moved products. You might have seen that minerals and food items. Food is the necessity because we are consuming food probably to live. Okay. There is no existence of life probably without food. So food is something called as an essential commodity, and there is a huge role of the supply chain because they are the most moved products. Okay, there is a statement from Paulman, Unilever CEO, who was saying that the cost of inaction greater than the cost of action. So probably companies, they have to think. Probably as a student, you have to think how you can go for a responsible manufacturing system, how you can go for responsible business management, how you can go for sustainable business development, how you can go for circularity and all those things. Because you have to save our Mother Earth. And it's not only that we have to save our other Mother Earth, but we have to probably earn our profits while contributing to the society as well as to give our contribution to the environment. Okay. So they have discussed about their case that how they have lose some money due to water scarcity and failing agricultural productivity. But still, we have to do something because this is a time for action now. If we are not able to do anything at this moment of time as well, as an academician, as an industry, as a policy speaker, or as a policy person, so probably we are missing a trick. And then I don't think we could do something to save our planet, or probably to save our community, to go for sustainable business development. Okay. Let us talk about food supply chain. So this was the basic introduction probably for supply chain, for linear economy, and what is happening all across the world probably. Okay. Now about food supply chain, so same, there would be different actors in this food supply chain. Yeah. So it might be starting from, though in this slide it has been mentioned producer, but from producer itself, I would like to say you can start it from here, maybe from farmers. Okay, because they are the original contributors who are providing the raw materials. So you can start it from farmers, and then probably it is going to you are going for producers, or you could say processors, And after that, probably they are processing and they are going for maybe spot markets, collection centers, self consumptions. And finally, you are saying that it is going for those processing units, and for for from fulfillment sector or center, it is also going for some distribution center when you are distributing those products. There are wholesaler, retailers, customers, and so and so. Let me give you something real in reality. Okay, if I'm talking about food supply chain and if I'm talking about circularity, so if you can see on this screen, basically this is something that I have taken from one of our project. Yeah. So I have discussed, I have basically worked with a couple of companies and couple of supply chains in Turkey in our project that is going on. And the name of the company is Yasser Group. Basically, they are acting as an industrial symbiosis. Of course, in this particular slide, I think at the later end, we are talking about industrial symbiosis or ecology, but still, like these companies, which I'm talking about, Yasser Group, so they are working as an industrial symbiosis. In an industrial symbiosis, what is the you could say the what is the you could say the mechanism how they works? Like in industrial symbiosis, there is a group of companies, okay, and in that group of companies, sometimes the output of one company, okay, that is going to be used as the input for another company. Yeah. So see, like in Yasser Group, probably where I'm discussing with you. So they are having, in this particular example, they are having three units or three companies like feed production, meat production, and there is one more unit called milk production. So they were having three companies. They were having few more companies in their in that umbrella. But as we are talking about here, food. So this is something called as like milk production unit, meat production unit, and there is a feed production unit. Basically what we have done in this particular project or what we have done in this particular kind of supply chain, we have mapped the whole activities plan according to forward logistics. Okay, logistics is something when you're dealing with the movements. Okay, so when I'm saying forward, so it means you are moving forward in the supply chain from supplier to manufacturer, manufacturer to distributors, distributors to retailers, and finally we are reaching to the customer. When I'm talking about reverse, so basically you are coming back from your customers. Okay, basically you are closing the loop of the supply chain. And in circular economy, what you are doing, probably you are treating your waste as a resource because you would like to get maximum value from that waste. Okay, so see what is happening in this particular example as well. So we are having some one-way trip and we are having some round trips. In those round trips, okay, sometimes the companies, they are getting with the empty returns. Sometimes they are dealing with raw material transportation or crate transportation for those empty bottles, or maybe the pallet transportations. Okay, and they are also getting some raw materials for milk production. Okay, what happened? Sometimes what they are doing. So see the output of the company, as I mentioning. So what happened? Like sometimes the residue from this particular milk. Okay, so residue of this particular milk company or the residue of this, let's say, meat production company, they are being directly shipped to this feed production unit just to produce those feeds. Basically, this is the food for animals. So what I'm saying, so you are basically treating the waste produced from milk production unit, meat production units. This is just an example. And then what you are doing, you are taking those residues and then you are taking those residues as the input material for your feed production company. In that way, you are using the waste produced from milk production unit and meat production unit. But on the other hand, in this feed production unit, you are taking that as an input. So it means you are working on that circular economy or circularity concept, because we have mentioned here some round trips and we have mentioned here some logistics. Okay, so the whole idea from this reverse logistics or from this circular economy is how you can get maximum value from your resources. Because I'm not saying it how you can get maximum value from your waste. Please try to treat that waste as a resource, and then you can basically create value from that resource in some other means. Okay, there are different business models for that. There are business different strategies for that. Probably we are going to discuss a couple of them as per the time limitations. Okay, now what is the importance of this, or why do we need this circularity in this basically food supply chain or food sector? So, my dear friends, you would be getting surprised to know some of the figures. Almost 30% of the food is wasted in post harvest stage of the food supply chain in developing countries. Means we are wasting around one third of global food produced. So, see, on one hand, we are saying that we are having scarcity of food, but on other hand, we are wasting almost one third of total food. Okay. On one hand, we are saying we should introduce some bills for food security and we should try to work for zero hunger. Okay. But on other hand side, we are wasting a lot. Okay. So where is the solution? And food supply chain, my dear friends, when you're talking about food supply chain, so food supply chain, they used to consume fresh water, almost 70% of the fresh water, because when you are producing those edible items, when you are producing those food items, so you need to consume food, and you are contributing also 25% of the greenhouse gas emissions. Okay. According to US Environmental Protection Agency, 24% of the municipal solid waste ending up in landfills in US is food. So this problem is not only available in developing economies like India, China, but it is also very much prevalent in developed economies like US, UK, or probably the Europe. Okay, because I have worked with a couple of companies there as well. But the important thing is, in developing economies, you can have this figure more. You can have more percentage of wastage. Okay. Now, I would like to invite one of my scholar basically to just for 5 to 10 minutes because we have also something for you guys because he is working with me, Mr. Anish, as a scholar in IIT Roorkee, and his thesis is on food supply chain, basically perishable food supply chain, and he has produced a couple of good outputs. We have published a couple of good articles in different international journals. Those are high impact factor journals, or you could say those are having ABDC 3 or maybe ABDC A ranking systems, etc. If I'm talking about sustainability, so I must talk about triple bottom line model. When I'm talking about triple bottom line model, so this is something based on your economic performance, based on your environmental performance, and based on your social performance. Okay. So I would like to invite him to basically speak on for 5 to 10 minutes for this particular theme. And this work has already been published somewhere. So Anish, you can carry out.
Sure, sir. Thank you very much, sir. That was a really nice introduction. Uh, I think we'll continue with your screen shared as well,
Please,
sir.
please, 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 please.
Okay, sir. So, guys, I think sir presented a very nice introduction about the core of the issue that how linear economy is not at all sustainable in the current times, and how the issue is much more bigger in food supply chains. The numbers that we see, they're really big. If you imagine all the food that is being produced in the world in a year, if one third of that is being lost or wasted, then it is equally a huge amount of economic loss as well as environmental loss. Correct. So the idea of this paper was to how what could be the challenges from from a sustainability perspective that are actually causing this much of wastage, and what are the sustainability related challenges in food supply chains in Indian scenario. So we started with a basic fishbone analysis, cause and effect analysis of the wastages and spoilages that are taking place in Indian food supply chains.
Just one
So
second, Anish, 1 second. When you're talking about fishbone diagram, so I would like to highlight for students, they can easily adopt this fishbone diagram, maybe in their different projects as well. I can give a very best example, very simple example. Let us say you are going to evaluate the quality of food, maybe in your hostel mess, okay, or maybe in your canteen. So there also you can apply this fishbone diagram because this is something called as cause and effect diagram, Ishikawa diagram, which Anish is mentioning, and you can have your project on using such diagrams as well. Please, Anish.
sure, sir. Thank you, sir. So this is one of the quality tools that we have, and it gives us a brainstorming. You can arrive at a structured way of viewing your problem. So the problem here is the wastages and spoilages that are taking place. So through literature review, we search so many causes that are actually causing this wastage. So four category of issues we found. First was planning issue. Supply chains are essentially ill planned. forecast for demand forecasts are not easily available. Demand is not properly management. uh, Shelf life estimation is not done. Then there are cold chain issues that refrigerated vehicles are not easily available. Cold chain infrastructure is not there in India. Then there are some more external issues such as government uh, regulations and farmer integration and customer attitude towards food wastage. These are also issues. Then there is the issue of supply chain competencies as well. For example, the quality of produce is not so good. So there's lack of training of farmers. There's lack of coordination. So all these issues we shortlisted. So then further on we discussed. So can we go to the next slide?
Please.
Uh, Further, we discussed with experts that, and based on those experts' discussion, we shortlisted 13 key challenges that are there in Indian perishable food supply chain. The first one was lack of product characteristics and perishability consideration in supply chain planning. That is that the design of supply chains in India, they do not cater to specific product characteristics. For example, most of the vegetable supply chains, they are designed to cater to the requirements of potato supply chains, because back in 80s when there was more malnutrition and food scarcity was there, at that time most of the cold chain infrastructure was designed according to potatoes. So specific to products we do not have infrastructure. Then there is poor demand management, that the producer or the farmers which is producing the product, he does not have a view of demand that is there in the market. He does not know how much demand will be there for a particular product in the next season. So most of the times, therefore, there is this demand and supply mismatch. So if further what there is poor logistics performance. Now there are issues like most of the vehicles or the trucks are old, refrigerated vehicles are not available, the drivers are not well trained, the road infrastructure is not well built, the storage warehouses are not properly built. So all because of that there is great issue of logistics performance. Then there is lack of quality control. The product at the farm level is not properly handled, the storage is not good, the sorting, the grading operations are not properly done. So hence because of that there is a lot of quality issues as well. So the next slide. Then there is the issue of poor temperature management. Specifically, if we talk about perishable foods, temperature is very important, because the refrigerated vehicles they are not maintained or serviced properly. So what happens is there is a lot of temperature exploitation. So that leads to product spoilage and degradation of our product. For example, if you want to transport a lychee or something like a strawberry to a greater distance, it won't be possible without sophisticated management of the temperature of that product. So, talking about perishable foods, temperature is again a great issue. Then there is lack of traceability and supply chain visibility. So, think of it, if you are buying a particular product in a remote city, say Bangalore, and the seller is telling you that the product is that this apple is Kashmiri apple. How exactly do you know that it is the original thing? So the customer will not be ready to pay the right price for it, right? So again, then there is lack of horizontal integration of farmers. So if we see something like Amul did this in a beautiful way by creating cooperatives of farmers. So the same model has not been replicated in fruits and vegetables and other perishables. So, if we see the Amul model, then the horizontal integration through cooperatives or FPOs is a beautiful solution to solving problems of farmers and sustainability issues in India, right? So, lack of that in majority parts of the country is again a major issue. Then there is lack of information and communication tools. So again, because of lack of ICT tools, what happens is that the farmers are not well informed. They are not well informed to take proper decisions regarding how to increase the productivity of their produce. Then they do not know which product to produce, where to sell their products, where to sell their produce. Right. So this lack of ICT tools is a major problem. Yes, sir. Then there is poor pre-harvest management. So what is pre-harvest? That before the harvest is done, what is required is that proper sowing technique should be used, proper irrigation technique should be used, proper uh, uh, debugging technique should be used, right? So quality of produce, when to pluck the produce, when to pluck the fruit at the right time, right? The right time of harvest is also very important. So all these things are pre-harvest things, right? So because there is poor pre-harvest management, again there is a lot of food wastage. Suppose if you are transporting tomato to a large distance, say from one district to another, and if we do not harvest at the proper time, what will happen if we harvest too early? Then at the time when we are selling it in the market, it won't be properly ripe and it won't get the right price. But if we harvest a little late, then what happens is by the time it will reach the market, it will be over ripened and it will lead to quality loss of that produce and wastage of that produce, right? So uh, this this pre-harvest is a major thing, right? Then there is the issue of infrastructure issue because of poor mandi infrastructure, poor road transport, poor logistics transport, right? Infrastructure, if we and infrastructure issue is one thing that is there in almost all the major social sectors that we see, right? Then uncertain market prices. Now, because of many previously discussed things, the prices in the market is always fluctuating, and it's not temporarily, or in a timeline. It's fluctuating as well as it is fluctuating geographically. That is, on the same day, you will see that the price of a particular product, a food product, any vegetable is different in one district as compared to another district of the same state. So there is huge uncertainty in market prices as well, right? So then poor cold chain infrastructure. The When we are talking about fruits, vegetables, and other PFSC, perishable food supply chains, cold infrastructure is essentially the backbone of it. So lack or poor cold chain infrastructure is again a major issue. And the last one would be lack of government regulations and support, right? So we studied all these 13 issues and we modeled them using two techniques. First was interpretive structural modeling technique and second was analytic hierarchy process technique, ANP, right? So can you go to the next slide, right? So what ISM or interpretive structural modeling does is it studies the interrelationships of different factors and how they impact each other, and based on that it gives us a hierarchical structure of the problem. So suppose in any complex problem like the one which we have here, we have 13 factors. So it is not clear which one is more important, which one is has a greater dependence over other factors, or which one is have a greater impact over other factors. Because if we are able to identify a particular factor which is affecting all other factors in the most strongest way, then by improving that particular factor, what we can do is we can have some improvement in all other factors as well, right? So the first model that we use is the ISM model. The second is the ANP model, analytical network process. It is used to rank our factors, right? So we use a combined way of ISM and ANP to rank both these factors. The next slide, please. So from the first step of ISM modeling, I think the details of this can be we can discuss in some another session. But the results that we got was these one. Now, if we see this model, we see a nice hierarchy of five stage hierarchy of those 13 factors, right? The factors which are, you can see the through arrows, you can see the factors which are at the very bottom. These are the factors which have impact over all other factors at the upper levels, right? So those which are at the bottom hierarchy or at the fifth level of hierarchy, these two issues, infrastructure issue or lack of government support and regulations, these are two factors which have direct or indirect effect over all other factors, right? So what we can do if we improve, and we can see this in our current policy making as well. The government is also pushing a lot for infrastructure. They are bringing new regulations and new rules as well. So certainly the government is also paying attention to it. So by improving the infrastructure and by improving the government support and regulations to these farmers, we can see an improve in pre-harvest management techniques. We can see improve in cold chain infrastructure. We can see improvement in farmer integration. Right. We can see improvement in all other factors as well. So similarly, as we move up the level, as we move up the hierarchy, poor pre-harvest management will give us improvement in temperature management of our supply chain. It will give us better perishability focused design of supply chain. Right. It will give us better. No, it will certainly improve all other factors as well. Right.
Let me add something, Anish. So
Yes, sir.
basically, dear participants, what Anish want to say, because this is a very high level of research that we conducted at IIT Roorkee, okay? And the meaning was, I know because you are not having a research background. The meaning here is only to give you a think like how the research can be integrated probably within the topic. Okay, because we are talking about here food supply chains, we are talking about food organization, and when I'm talking about perishability, when I'm talking about sustainability, when I'm talking about circular economy, so see, this is one of the way that how the things can be integrated. Different people, different scholars, they are working in this domain and they are trying to evaluate the sustainability and circular economy perspectives in this food supply chain context. So this is one of our perspective that how we have identified couple of challenges basically in Indian context, and you will see that these are the most prevalent challenges. Of course there could be few more challenges that you can add or maybe someone can add, so there is no limit, but this is just an example like how things can work and how we are dealing with all these challenges when we are talking about sustainability issues in perishable sector in India. Okay, when Anish is talking about this model, so it is a 5 stage model, and at the bottom you have driving factors because these are the driving issues or driving challenges. At the top of the model, these are the basically dependent challenges because these are highly going to depend on the bottom one challenges or the challenges which are positioned at the bottom levels. Okay, I'm talking about the next model maybe for ANP. So Anish, just in 1 minute you can summarize this please.
Yeah, ANP is essentially used to get a ranking of all the factors. We do by doing pairwise comparison, that we pick up two factors and compare their importance with respect to a higher upper hierarchy, right? So did that pairwise comparison. All these arrows, basically the double-ended arrows, means that two factors which they are connecting, they will be compared, right? So this model is then further integrated into a matrix structure, and that matrix structure, the output of that gives us a ranking of all these factors, right? So can we go to next slide, sir.
Please.
So if we see this model, this was a result of our previous two slides, right? If we see the third column, this is the weights that are generated from the ANP model, right?
This
And then
one.
there are the ISM hierarchy level.
This one.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Right. So if we when we saw the ISM level, we can make out that any factor which is at the fifth level is the most driving one, is the most strongest driver. Therefore, we have to give it somewhat more weight, right? Similarly, if a factor got more weight from ANP model, then that should also be given some more importance. So what we did was we tried to do a hybrid thing. We multiplied both the factors, and we finally got this level multiplied by weight factor, weight parameter. And if we see the red ones, the which are red highlighted, those are the strongest factors. Those are the most important challenges for sustainability in perishable food supply chains in an Indian context. And if we see the most important one, it is the lack of horizontal integration of farmers. Now, again, it is very important to, again, like I discussed previously, if we see the Amul model or any other dairy sector model, the this higher horizontal integration model has beautifully solved many challenges there, right? In the perishable milk, which is highly perishable, they are marketing from huge distances to the remote places, right? So horizontal integration is one factor which can certainly, which should be the most important challenge in Indian context. Then would be the pre-harvest management. So training our farmers for good pre-harvest management techniques will solve a lot of problems that are there. For example, they could, proper harvesting techniques they should follow, proper irrigation techniques they should follow, and what new techniques they could use to train them for them as well. So that will lead to good pre-harvest management. Next factor would be lack of government regulations and support. Again, like government is also paying a lot of attention to it, and more support should be there, so that the farmer, the regulatory and rules support is there for new structures that are coming up. For example, if we want to establish a circularity based business model in India, then the government regulation should be there which will support such a structure, right? So that circularity and sustainability in food supply chains can be improved. And
Okay.
then other
No,
factors are also there, right?
please, Anish. So I would stop Anish here because otherwise we are not going to discuss the remaining material. Thank you
Thank you
very
so
much,
much.
Anish.
Yes.
Now let me move to another important part: a circular approach for food supply chains. Okay. So now I'm getting more focused on circular economy, maybe in next 20 minutes. So I would like to sum up what we have mentioned in the slides. Please be focused. In linear economy, you are majorly looking forward like on this model: produce, consume, and dispose. Okay. So your most of the focus is once you consume that item, so you are just going to dispose it. But my friend, this is not a good way, because as I mentioned, resources are finite. Okay, so we need to think beyond of this dispose, and this is something called as circular economy. That when you are thinking beyond of this dispose, when you are thinking how you can create some value from this dispose, this is something called as waste. So how you can create some value from this waste, this is, we have to think, and this is the era of this circular economy. This is the beauty of this circular economy. Okay, so circular economy is something when you are saying again that we are creating value from this resource, and you are creating a loop, a regenerative loop of the resources. Why? Because resources are finite, and it is focused on three principles: that you are going to improve the natural capital. Basically, you are going to improve your economic efficiency, GDP. You are going to optimize your resources. You are contributing to the environment, and at the same time, you are also contributing to your system. You are improving the effectiveness of your system. You are trying to regenerate your system. So this is something that you are contributing to the society. So at the top of that, you are trying to achieve sustainability, and circular economy is something called as a prerequisite, or it is something called as a condition for achieving sustainability or sustainable business development. Okay. I'm talking about again couple of graphical illustrations. So in linear economy, you're talking about resources, manufacture, distribution, consumption, and dispose. That's it. But in circularity, you are talking about couple of R's strategies, maybe recycling, refurbishing, reusing, remanufacturing, okay, reducing. So when you are using any of these R's, so probably you are trying to create a circular model. You are trying to go for a circularity, and this is something called as circular economy. Couple of R's could be there, reuse could be there, recycle could be there, refurbishing could be there, redesigning could be there, and then you can also go for regenerate. Okay, and if you will see on Google, if you will see on internet, if you will see in academic literature, so you will see there are different R's. In our research also, we have provided this 9R framework. In one of our research that has been published in JBR, Journal of Business Research, that is a highly prestigious journal in management science, management domain. So in that article, we have proposed this 9R strategies framework. And in R0, we are talking about refuse, rethink, reduce, reuse, repair, refurbish, remanufacture, repurpose, recycle, and recover. So you can also probably follow this slide, and I can also share those papers with Professor Ashutosh. Then he can share all those materials with you guys. Okay. So you can use any of these R's. Again, it depends on the nature of your business, because you can't apply all these 9 R's probably in one business. There could be some limitation. So you need to think about the nature of your business, whether it is manufacturing or services, and accordingly you have to apply this 9R framework. If I'm talking about how you can reshape your supply chain for circularity, so you have to identify opportunities where you can apply again, depending on your business. Either you can apply it maybe on pre-harvest stage or maybe at your post-harvest stage. Either you can apply circularity at your farmer's end, or maybe at your you could say company end, or maybe at your distribution perspective, or maybe at your logistics issues, or maybe at your packaging issues. So there could be so many issues, or maybe in your designing issues at within your company, let's say. So the thing is, you have to identify those opportunities. You have to identify where you are wasting probably your resources, and then accordingly you have to go for these 9R frameworks. Technologies, as Anish has couple of times mentioned about the use of IT, information technology. So my dear friends, today we are talking about digitalization. Okay, so in digitalization, you have to probably use the technology as a weapon to improve circularity in your food supply chain. People are using blockchains to trace their supply chain, to improve visibility of their supply chain. People are talking about big data analytics. People are talking about sensors. People are talking about robotics. People are talking about maybe image sensing, image processing. People are talking about different kinds of those, you could say, application of those IT technologies, which are going to improve the performance or the visibility in your food supply chains. Collaboration is also very important when you're looking to collaborate. As Anish has mentioned, I think horizontal integration across farmers. So we need to integrate with those farmers. We need to collaborate with those farmers as a company. Okay, as a policy, we need to integrate with those farmers for circularity. We talk about probably here. I think there is a butterfly diagram of circular economy. I think this is again very famous diagram. Okay, so this is something looks like a butterfly, like how you can go for circularity. And again, different R's are there. You can go for recycling, refurbishing, reusing. But again, it depends on the nature of your business. It depends on the nature of the products that you are dealing with. As I have given you one example in industrial symbiosis, that one of the company, Yashar Group, they are having, let's say, milk producing unit. They are having, let's say, feed production unit. They are having, let's say, meat production unit. So they are using the residue of their milk production unit and residue of that meat production unit probably to manufacture that feed, that is the food for animals. Okay, so this is something that you need to think about, how you are going to work on different 9R's framework. Okay, and then probably you are talking about how you can reduce the consumption of probably water, consumption of energy, and you can reduce the generation of those greenhouse gas emissions and wastage, etc. Because in circular economy, you are not talking about only materials, you are also talking about energy, you are also talking about water. Okay, so it is a food water energy nexus that you are talking about when you are dealing with circular economy and sustainability issues. So let me probably come to the roots of circular economy. In that roots of circular economy, as a student, now my question is how I can implement circular economy. Okay, sir, I have understood circular economy, but now how I can understand, probably how I can apply circular economy, or what are the principles, what are the theories behind this circular economy principles. So first of all, we are going to discuss about theories maybe in 5 to 10 minutes. Then I will give you one or two business models that how we can apply circular economy in reality in industries. And I think then we are going to sum up. Okay, so in theories or in theoretical understandings, so people are talking about cradle to cradle. You might have heard about this design approach. Okay, product design approach. So in that design approach, you are probably designing your products in such a way that you can easily recover the value of those products maybe after, once they are going to used by the customers for their end of life. Cradle to cradle. Okay, C to C product design. Industrial ecology, as I was mentioning about industrial symbiosis. So industrial ecology is one of the theoretical mechanism that is going to drive the circular economy. That output of the process for one company is going to become the input of the process maybe for another company, or within the same company, output of one process is going to become the input for another process. This is something that is called as industrial ecology. Okay, and biomimicry, it is again one of the, you could say, the nature based mechanism, I think, where you are using the nature to probably go for circular economy principles in terms of design, or in terms of how basically nature is going to behave as a period of time. I will give you some examples probably. So cradle to cradle, I think, because you have to eliminate the waste of concept of this waste. Waste is food. Okay, so how probably you can take the maximum advantage of this waste, because here in food supply chain the waste is food, and you don't want to waste your food, but there are some means that how you can get those nutrients from this food, maybe in terms of biological nutrients, or maybe in terms of those techno materials. So how you can collect those materials, how you can recover those materials, maybe you can go for some renewable energy sources, and then you can cash in terms of solar income. Okay, so this is something called as cradle to cradle, that how you can going to eliminate the concept of this waste in terms of designing, or in terms of thinking for your product, that is something called as food in this food supply chain. So waste is food, as I'm talking about, you can regenerate in terms of those anaerobic digestion, biomass, biogas. So in terms of that, how you can regenerate your ecosystem from this food supply chains. Okay, industrial ecology, as I mentioned, like output of one is going to become the input of one. So you are talking about material flow, you are talking about energy flow. Okay, so this is something, this is the basis of this particular concept called industrial ecology. And in industrial symbiosis, different companies, they can collaborate. Sometimes you might have seen the scrap of one company, maybe the steel, let's say the steel scrap is going to be used by some other company to produce something useful, maybe steel pipes from that scrap. So this is something again called industrial ecology or industrial symbiosis. The concept is how Palopuro, pilot case of AES in Finland. So arable area for food crops and for biomass, from maize for green manuring. So basically, this is one of the example for industrial symbiosis. Okay, in terms of in one country called Finland. So how basically they are dealing with different, let's say, stakeholders they have combined. Okay, so this is something called as bakery and mill. This is something called as one of the dryer. This is something called as the fields, like they are probably distributing those organic matters and fertilizers to field. Basically, this is one of the biogas plant they have. This is one of the vegetable farms they have. This is one of the hen house they have. So see, they have created an industrial symbiosis. They have their different units, and they have collaborated, and then they are using probably the output of one process, maybe material, maybe energy, and then they are consuming those, let's say, the outputs as the inputs, maybe for some other, you could say, plant. Okay, and these are the local and regional customers and the restaurants as well. And you can see how much we are wasting in terms of restaurants. Okay, some of the other examples for this industrial symbiosis. Okay, there is a very famous example of this industrial symbiosis in Denmark. It was one of the first industrial symbiosis that was created probably in Kalundborg. Okay, so where like the primary partners are oil refinery, power station, gypsum board facilities, and a pharmaceutical company. They are sharing their groundwater, surface water, wastewater, steam, and fuel, and they are also exchanging a variety of byproducts that become feedstocks in some other processes. So it is not only about food, but you can say different industrial symbiosis maybe for different types of businesses as well. Okay, so this was the whole idea. Biomimicry is something when you are talking about, like, you are studying nature to imitate its design to solve human problems. Okay, so when you are taking the help of nature, you are talking about sustainable building design. You might have seen now probably one research area called green building design, or maybe sustainable building, kind of that. Okay, so there is a state center Harare in Zimbabwe has a ventilation system inspired from the mounds built by termites. I think this is one of the example for that what I was talking. So this is something like that has been inspired by this nature. Okay, so how it has been evolved, this design has been evolved, and they have tried to create this kind of structure, this kind of sustainable building design in Zimbabwe itself. And maybe you can study more probably on the internet itself about this particular, you could say, structure. Now let me give you something about quickly on how you can apply this circular economy in your business. This is very, very, very much important, because as an academician, I think this is our responsibility, and this is our job to give something in reality to the companies and to policymakers. So there is a very famous framework, very powerful framework, literature tested framework called as Resolve. Okay, so resolve is something called as recover, share, optimize, loop, virtualize, exchange. Okay, each action is technology enabled. So see, if you are looking to integrate circular economy, so please you can start maybe from resolve framework. Okay, so you have to go probably step by step, and then I think you can go with circularity. What happened in this different framework, as I have mentioned in resolve, so the first word stands for R, that is something called a regenerate. So basically you have to regenerate your system. Maybe you can try to shift to renewable energy and materials. As I mentioned, in India lots is happening in terms of that solar power plants. Okay, so you have to probably restore or maybe retain the health of your ecosystem, which has been highly damaged. Okay, valorization of food waste as biofertilizers. Okay, for different kinds of food supply chains, closed food supply chains. Coca-Cola, basically they replenish 100% of the water used by it in Canada. So this is something that is being very advanced form of examples. But the simple form is that you should try to regenerate your system depending on your business. Okay, and for that probably there are different means are available. You can use, let's say, if you are dealing with food waste, so probably again one of the example could be you are valorizing that food waste as a biofertilizers. Okay, or maybe you can shift from renewable, probably you can shift to those renewable energy sources and materials, or maybe you can try to go with those industrial ecology kind of models. Okay, so you could shift basically something to restore the health of your ecosystems. Okay, share economies, you might have heard about Airbnb, share city, you might have heard about sharing models. Okay, so this is something called as like, now let us try to share probably our assets, cars, rooms, appliances, etc. This is going to implement, this is going to foster this circular economy. Let us go for optimize, let us try to optimize the performance, the efficiency of products, let us try to optimize our resources. And resources are your material, your manpower, your machines. Okay, your infrastructure, information technology. So all these are your resources. How you can optimize your resources, this is again something very important to improve your efficiency. So there are a couple of you could say techniques, and those you could say methods are provided how you can go with those optimization or how you can go with those optimal analysis. So probably you can refer this slide if you would like to go in much details. Okay, loop, when basically you are trying to close the loop of the supply chain. Recovery of the value also used to work with 3R policy: recover, reuse, and recycle. Okay, so they have some projects, those are going on in Jaguar Land Rover. Also, they are having some reality projects in Caterpillar manufacturing. They're also having a project called as remanufacturing initiative they are having. And in food sector also Cadbury, okay, or in dairy organizations as Amul, Mother Dairy, etc. They're also working with these different kinds of projects when they are trying to go for these circular economy initiatives through recycling. Okay, because in food sometimes remanufacturing it is not possible, but they are trying to go with those recycling initiatives. Okay, virtualize, today we are connected virtually, so this is again I think we are saving probably our resources. So why not to virtualize, why not to probably use technology, 3D printers are there, okay, to minimize those wastage. And how about exchange, because KitKat, again there is one example. So and advanced and renewable goods instead of old and non-renewable goods. So why not to exchange with those smart and eco-friendly materials such as bio-based food packaging? Okay, you might have seen this example. Why not to apply some new technologies, 3D printed food, etc. So the important thing is why not to exchange your material? Why not to exchange your machines? Why not to probably exchange, or why not to upgrade skills of your workers and so and so? So why not to probably do something with your system to upgrade it in terms of improving its efficiency. Okay, one of the example again from the food systems, like when you are talking about industrial symbiosis, etc. So and when we are talking about smart cities, so again we are wasting a lot. So again there is a need to design that healthier ecosystem in for food. For your cities, basically, to eliminate that wastage, okay, and to create that bioeconomy or circular economy or green economy system. So now these are the references probably that what we have taken maybe for our study. If you would like to read probably these papers, so you can go to the internet, you can probably go to those databases, you can download from there, and then you can read a lot. So I tried to be on time. I think it is 7:26 or 27. I think now we can have maybe next 10-15 minutes for your question and answers, please. I'm hoping that I have provided you a skeleton view of this circularity or sustainability in context of food, and it is not only in context of food. It was also there in general. If you are talking about manufacturing, or if probably if you are talking about maybe for other types of businesses. Now it's up to you, dear students, or to the attendees, if you would like to add something, or if you would like to give some feedback, or if you would like to discuss, because I'm very much open to learn. So maybe I'm going to learn a couple of new things from your side as well when you're going to discuss those. Thank you very much for your patience, and thank you very much for listening. Thank you. Please.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, I'm Roshan Kumar, PhD scholar from IIT Roorkee, sir.
Roshan, how are you?
Yeah, fine, sir. Sir,
Please.
sir, will you please suggest some research problem in circular economy that should be done in future?
Okay, no problem. So, because we have discussed here a couple of things in food and all those, so I would like to mention you like if you have interest in this circular economy or sustainability. So, first of all, please try to understand the basic idea of this circular economy or sustainability. Already, I have demonstrated the basic idea. If you have listened this whole session, so I want to give you those idea like what we are doing in this circular economy or sustainability in context of supply chain and operations management. Okay, and then there is a no you could say there is a huge scope of implementing this circularity or sustainability in any of the business sectors, whether it is food or maybe manufacturing. In manufacturing, you are talking about core manufacturing, or you are talking about maybe textile, you are talking about maybe electronics, you are talking about maybe automotive, so or you maybe you are talking about power. So there is a huge scope in each and every sector, dear Roshan. Okay, but the important things again now depending on couple of other things, like where would you like to integrate circularity? Are you talking on a particular stakeholder like supplier, or maybe manufacturer, or maybe on distributor, or maybe on customer side, or you're looking to try to integrate the whole supply chain in that? So please try to think for that, maybe because this may take more time to answer that, so I can discuss with you on this particular point maybe later. Okay, but please try to think on those points.
Thank you,
Fine.
sir. Yeah, thank
Thank
you,
you.
sir. Sir, one more question is,
Please.
sir, which type of integration is more useful for farmers? That is horizontal or vertical integration? Means which type of integration I can prefer for farmers? Because as I
I
use,
I believe they should go for horizontal integration, because see in farmer, because see there's a difference between horizontal and vertical integration. In vertical integration, you have more and more control as a top authority, as an authority. Okay, because you are the controlling guy. But in horizontal integration, somehow you are giving an equal chance of those guys to collaborate, and you are not limiting their control. And for farmer side, probably we are looking to say that we need to give them something. We need to give them some control because they don't like to lose their control in the supply chain itself. Are you getting my point?
yes, yes.
Yeah. So this is
Thank
one
you.
of the main difference.
Thank you very much.
Please, Roshan. Any question from our other students, please?
Good evening, sir.
Hi, hi, Arunima.
Hello, sir. Sir, I have a query. Can you explain that what exactly nutrient metabolism means?
Nutrient metabolism. See, when you are talking about nutrients, see, and as a food, let's say you are wasting some food. Okay, that is one thing. Then you are just disposing that wasted food probably to your bin. That's another thing. But it's okay that you are not able to use that food again, maybe for, and that is not editable, maybe for, let's say, for you. Then what you can do, probably you can try to get for that nutrients metabolism, as you mentioned, means probably you can use it as a manure. Okay, and
Okay.
then you are adding those nutrients probably to the soil, and then you are probably trying to regenerate the health of your ecosystem. Are you getting my point?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay,
Thank
yeah,
you, sir. Thank you.
yeah, please. Hello, Farhan, good evening. As you are mentioning about perishable, you're mentioning about closed loop, and you're mentioning about those greenhouse gas emissions. So it's you mentioned rightly, my dear, that these cold supply chains or cold infrastructures, they are emitting those energy, or they are consuming those energies, or they are heavily emitting those carbon emissions. So this is again one of the other issues. If you are investing a lot on cold infrastructures or in cold supply chain structure, so that could be one part that where we need to make a balance. Okay, that how we are going to reduce that, probably those consumption of energy, and probably we are also trying to limit or trying to reduce the consumption of those carbon emissions, or trying to limit the emission of those carbon emissions. Okay, but the important thing is, for those, probably again you can go with some applications of these ITs, okay, or you can go with some applications of these advanced infrastructures thing. Because see, if you are dealing with those traditional things, okay, in your cold infrastructure, or probably in your cold supply chain, you could say management. So probably instead of getting something useful, I think you are probably consuming more than you should not. Okay, so it is going to create again a dilemma that when you are investing on those issues, so you have to probably upgrade your system as well, because you can't say that okay, we are probably going, let's say, maybe we are going to develop, we are going to design an efficient cold supply chain. But if you're talking it, we should do it without investment, because this is one of the problem with, again, with economies like India, that when we are saying that we need to upgrade our system, what we, again, we are lacking in terms of resources, either maybe for machinery, or for maybe the human skills. Okay, because we need to upgrade, we need to invest, because until and unless we are not able to invest, so how you can imagine that those systems, they are going to give you benefits instead of giving you more limitations and disadvantages? Are you getting my point, Farhan? Okay, please, any other question from the audience?
So we are saying that crops are losing their genetic resources. So what could be the main reason behind that, sir?
Cops.
Yes, sir.
Cops are using genetic resources.
Losing their genetic resources, sir.
See, like when we are talking about resources, so we are talking about these natural resources. Okay, so you are talking about those water consumption issues, you are talking about those energy consumption issues. Okay, and probably you are talking sometime maybe on those emissions, as this guy Farhaz has mentioned.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when you're talking about all these issues, so you need to be very careful, because these are you are dealing with limited resources, isn't it? Because that is energy, again, you have to pay for that energy probably, and it is not free. Okay, if you're talking about, again, maybe for material, the raw material that you are using, maybe for processing as a manufacturer, so again you have to be very wise in using that. See, as a customer, again, when you are buying some food products, let's say, so you have to pay for those, isn't it? So if you're not consuming those products maybe for their value, and then you're just wasting those items, so at one day probably you are in trouble. Okay, so this is something that as a different stakeholders in the supply chain, either we are at farmer end, either we are at manufacturer end, or maybe at distributors, retailers, or maybe at customer end. So we have to be very wise, okay, in terms of those consumptions. Otherwise, at the end of the day, we would be in trouble.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you.
Please, any other question, my dear friends?
Good evening, sir.
Please.
Sir, in order to be successful in supply chain management, what skills are required?
In order to be successful in supply chain management, what skills are required? The only skill required is, as a supply chain manager, you have to manage, you have to match your demand with supply. See, first of all, you have to check for your demands, and for demand, probably you have to go for those forecastings. Okay, and then you have to manage for your resources, because you have to supply, you have to fulfill that demand. And in that supply, how you are going to manage your resources, this is one of the important questions. Okay, and in your resources, what you have to manage, you have to manage material, you have to manage labor, manpower, you have to manage probably machineries, you have to manage your cash flows, you have to manage your infrastructure, IT issues, and all those other resources. Okay, so in supply chain, planning is very important, and demand planning and supply planning and matching. These are the four, you could say, the foremost important things. And in demand planning, again, you have to go for a couple of other important activities. Like in demand planning, probably you have to check for customer requirements. What are their quality requirements related to quality systems? Okay, then you are talking about standards, you are talking about design. So there are a couple of things that you have to consider during quality, during you could say demand. Okay, when you are planning for your demand, when you are checking for your demand. And then when you're talking about supply, so you have a couple of other important functions, couple of other important activities that you have to consider for your supply. And once you have managed all those activities related to supply and all those activities related to demand, then you have to match that demand and supply. Because in your supply chain, you would like to make it continuous, you would like to this flow, let's say, going. You don't want to disturb this flow, because once the flow is disturbed, once the flow is disrupted, what we have seen in this COVID-19. So as a supply chain manager, as a company management, you are going to be in problem. Okay, you are going to be in loss. So the flow should be continuous, there should be a continuous flow of materials, information, money, products, human power, and so and so. Okay, if there is any problem with any of these flows, it means your supply chain is going to suffer and your business is going to be in loss, or your business is going to be suffer. Are you getting my point?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. This is again very important question, very practical question there, Farhan. So probably we are not able to find market for that. Okay, and this is something that what we have seen couple of times in probably news, in media, that so and so tons of probably potatoes, tomatoes, and probably this particular vegetable has been wasted because there was no demand. One reason, or there was a lack of storage system. Another reason, there was a lack of infrastructure. Another reason. Okay, so you couldn't reach to the market, lack of transportation, lack of distribution. So there could be different reasons. And what we have discussed in our research by Anish, so he has discussed about couple of challenges for those perishability. Okay, how to achieve sustainability in perishable food supply chain. So he has discussed probably 12 or 13 challenges. So my dear Farhan, like, it is a collective issue. That's why as a farmer you are looking some support from the government. Okay, that they should probably build a channelized system, that how probably farmers they can reach to the market, how they can get the right price maybe for their products. Now the government probably they are saying that they are going to give some minimum price, minimum selling price, MSPs. Okay, so these kinds of rules and regulations, those are going in progress. And this is the reason that as a policy, probably they need to integrate probably with company, and as a policy and company, we need to integrate probably with the academia, because in academia we can give with those different stakeholders some models. And then if everybody is going to collaborate in this particular domain, and then I think some solutions would come. But still, like, we are on the surface level, and still there are several challenges, those are being there on this particular area which you have mentioned. But still initiatives are going on. Okay, thank you very much for that. I'm hoping that it must have added some value to your knowledge. Okay, because
Definitely.
due to shortage of time, so I just try to be very brief, and I just try to be on surface without getting much in depth, because in this 1 hour it was probably the sufficient. Maybe we can have probably in the future some more sessions where we could go in much more detail. Some detailed case studies could be there from our projects, where I can show you in reality what is happening probably. Okay, or how the things are happening at the ground level when we are considering sustainability or circular economy, etc. Okay, or sustainability initiatives or different R's frameworks are there on reality, as a, you could say, as adding value to your knowledge. Okay, so nice, please. So Ashutoshji, how was it?
Yes,
Have you
yes,
have
sir.
you?
It was great, and I think you have covered various aspects, which is very practical, in fact. So rather than being theoretical, the value addition
Thank
that
you.
we had is really
Thank you.
wonderful. So, considering the time, because you have another meeting to attend, I think we should end this session, and we'll again have another session in continuation with this. More specific sessions is what we can have.
Exactly. Maybe in the future we can have some case studies, so I can discuss maybe practical cases, because this was a generic one, just an introductory one. So like how we can do, what we can do, and what is the concepts, etc. Maybe in the future we can have some more focused case studies. Okay, no issues.
So, Simran, please.
Appealingly pointed out by Sir that it generates 11 billion tons of waste globally, out of which only 25% is recovered. Nearly 30% of food is wasted in the post harvest stage of the food chain in developing countries. So basically, we need to take steps and understand that how important is sustainability. We need to work on the challenges and overcome it. I would like to express our deep thanks on behalf of Circular Economy Study Group, BIT Lalpur campus, to our expert, Dr. Sachin Kumar Mangla, for such an amazing and informative presentation and giving us an insight on this relevant topic. I also extend my gratitude to Dr. Vandana Bhattacharjee, ma'am, director of our center, for providing us such a platform and opportunity to take this initiative of putting our efforts to make our economy waste free. My sincere thanks is directed to Dr. Ashutosh Mishra, sir, who took effort to organize this event. Special acknowledgement to all my faculty members for joining this session and making this a great success. I also thank the working committee members who contributed in this event. I would like to express my gratefulness to all the attendees for taking out time and supporting us in our mission towards circular economy. We look forward to conduct such events in future and hope Sachin sir will join us in some more events. Till then, reduce, reuse, rethink, repair, refurbish, recover, and recycle. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simran. So nice. Please take care, you all. Thank you very much. See you soon again.
Thank you, sir.
See you soon.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, sir.
Thanks a lot.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Anish.
So,
Bye, sir.
Thanks, Anish. Thanks, Anish. Take care.
Take care.